Let's talk about hammocks. There are a lot of different hammocks out there, so many that it can be super overwhelming to someone just getting into hammocking to decide what they want. I mean, there are brands out there that are a couple $100s, and then you've got others that you may find a deal on Amazon and they're 20 bucks or less with a suspension. Some come with suspension, some don't come with suspension, some need a special suspension. So what do? Well, you can't really go wrong. Make a choice. A lot of people start with something similar to this. This one happens to be a Ciroc, and this one is my youngest son, my 7-year-old's little 9-foot hammock. Now, a lot of the ones that you buy in the box stores, like Dick's Sporting Goods, Eno brand, are like this. They're parachute material. They've got, usually multiple colors, but they work. They're something simple, easy, cheap to get into. But let's look at some of the downsides of these. So while these cheaper ones are real easy to get into as far as price-wise, low out-of-pocket expense, here are some of the things I dislike about them. First of all, they're not as long, they're not as wide. They've got seams, 2 seams in the middle of the hammock, which makes comfort when you're laying in them a little bit less. It provides a point where it can kind of become a pressure point when you're laying in it, and you won't get as flat of a lay while you're in it. Now, for someone looking to move from hanging in the backyard, hanging out with friends, just lounging, to actually backpacking, this will probably be the next step in their progression. And this is just a simple netless hammock. This one happens to be a double layer. Now, you can get them either single or double layer, and that kind of depends on how you're going to use it. If you want to use a sleeping pad, so someone who's just getting into hammock camping may want to go with the double layer because they may already have sleeping pads from tent camping. So this is a cheaper alternative, so you don't have to start out with underquilts. You can either get these with or without ridgeline. The ridgeline kind of helps you to make sure that you get a consistent hang every time you go out. And these are usually a little bit wider, a little bit longer. This one's 10 feet long, whereas the other one was 9 feet. And it's a little bit wider. The fabric's a little bit more comfortable. There's no seams in the middle of it. And this is good until you find yourself in a place like South Carolina where there's a lot of mosquitoes. Then you're kind of dealing with, well, what do you do about the bugs? So for those who have taken the step into getting into hammocking and they bought themselves either a single or a double layer netless hammock, the next step when they find themselves in an environment with a lot of bugs is to go with a bug net. Now, you can buy lots of different types on the market, but this one here happens to be either the bottom entry bug net or the Franke style bug net, depending on who you ask, where you're shopping for it. The name Franke comes from another hammock guy that really came up with the idea. So to get into this one, it's a little bit awkward because you've got to go in through the bottom, okay? And then you open up your hammock, spread it out behind you, and then you can pull your feet up inside. And it's got a cinch on the bottom, so it's shock corded with a cinch and a barrel lock, and you can tighten it up. So you pretty much enclose yourself inside of here. Now, it is important to note that to do this, to use one of these, you have to have a ridge line, otherwise it's just going to collapse down on top of you. The ridge line is what keeps it up and above you. And then as you spread out, it keeps the sides taut and keeps it all off of you. And with this being underneath you, really the chance of bugs coming up in is pretty low. A lot of times when I go out, I wouldn't even close this up. If you were using an underquilt, that'll kind of seal it up even more. And when you're laying diagonal, just the amount that it kind of covers keeps it tight up against the bottom pretty much. So that is the next step in the evolution of the hammock. You've got first the parachute type. Some people do a DIY taffeta nylon type tablecloth material that they use to get their first one. Then they move to something like this with the ridge line. Then they find out that the bugs are getting them, so they have to go to this. But some people don't like having the the netting in their way all the time. So there's other options. So let's see what might be the next step in this evolution. The next step in this evolution for me was to move to this Dutch wear gear half-wit hammock. And the reason it's called a half-wit hammock is because of the bug netting that is integrated. It's sewn into the actual hammock body, and it goes about midway. So it'll cover your upper torso, keep the bugs off of your head while you're sleeping. What it doesn't do though is cover any of your lower body. So the way that you combat that is your over quilt, your top quilt covers you. You wear long pants, socks that'll keep the bugs off of you. And then the top is covered. They're not buzzing in your ears, not keeping you awake, biting your face. I've done a review on this, and it's got a retractable bug net that you can kind of adjust. You can see here when you sit in it, it's kind of off to the side so you can still sit in it. Real easy to get in and out of because you don't have a bug net that you've got to crawl into the bottom. So that makes it very convenient. Because it is retractable, you can pull it back. And then it has this little hook here. You can kind of flop it over the sides, and then now it's out of your way and you can lounge pretty easily. This one happens to have the knotty mods on both sides, which kind of creates a little bit of tension so that the side fabric doesn't flop over you. This one has a fixed ridge line, and I've got an organizer on it just like I did on the ridge line on the other one. But this one still has some limitations there. It's great for 3-season, but once you start getting into the colder weather, sometimes it's nice to have something that keeps you a little bit warmer. And now, a lot of people will argue that that's the underquilt and the top quilt's job is to keep you warm, and I agree. But sometimes there's other pieces there that can kind of extend your hammock and your gear that you have the season that you can use them. So let's take a look at what we can use to extend this a little bit longer, kind of the next step. So now we get to the next step in the evolution of what you'll take out with you. So we've seen the cheap one, we've seen the double or single layer netless, and we got to one with an integrated half net. There are the ones out there with the integrated full nets. We took our netless one and we put a Franke or a bottom entry bug net on it, a full coverage one. Now we've got this piece over this one. What this is a winter sock. So it's argon all the way around with one panel on the end that has no-see-um mesh, and that can be rotated around. When it's on the bottom, it encloses the top for more warmth, and it can be rotated around to vent to varying degrees. This will go on any of the netless hammocks, and the way that it works, it has a drawstring on one end that opens up, and then you just pull it down the length of your hammock. So the way this one works, to get into it, you pull the sock down, get into your hammock, you reach down and you grab it, and you pull it up over yourself. You figure out where the drawstring is, and you reach up over your head, pull the drawstring tight, and it closes around you. So now you can easily twist it around to get as much of the ventilation as you need. And then to get out of it, you have to reach back up over your head, find the drawstring, release it, and pull it back down over you. Now, in the middle of the night, for a quick pee break, that can be kind of a pain in the butt. Trying to find that drawstring, depending on how you've twisted it at night, you've got to remember where it is on there, follow the string to find it, to get in and out. The other downside to one of these, while they provide a lot of warmth and really block the wind really well, they've been said to increase the temperature 10 to 15 degrees, which is a plus. But like I said, a downside is my other hammock, that Dutch half-wit, has the integrated half bug net. So because that's attached to the ridge line, you can't reach all the way up in. So you have to either disconnect it all the way, or you can swap ends and have what's normally your head end become your foot end, so that the net is on the side where it's always attached, and then you pull it up over your head. So that's one way to counteract it, but it kind of becomes a problem there. So pluses and downsides to all the different hammocks that are out there. You know, there are other hammocks that have integrated bug nets and integrated, you know, top covers, but the ones that I've seen, you have to select which direction you lay. And as a new hammock camper, as someone that's just getting out there and getting started in this, you don't always know which way is comfortable for you, which way you lay. And so for the new hammock camper, you know, a lot of times buying those cheap ones is a logical start, and then you'll get into some of the better ones, like the Warbonnet Blackbird later on, or the Blackbird XLC, I believe is what it's called, that has the top cover included. But you have to know which way you lay. So right off the bat, that's a downside, and if you flip-flop it all, it'll never work for you. So where's the industry go after, you know, the parachute ones, netless hammocks, you know, having a bug net that you can put on there, having a cover like a sock that you can put on there. You know, you've got the ones out there like the Warbonnets, the Blackbirds that have directional lay with, you know, integrated zippered bug nets. There's a lot of different ways you could go from there. But it takes innovation. It takes someone coming up with that. So what I'm sitting in now is the latest, most anticipated, I think, of Dutch's collection. It's been something that's been talked about for a while, coming in 2 weeks for quite some time. But this here is the long-awaited chameleon that I'm sitting in.